In the 19th century, some Hindu reformers remolded Hinduism. They remolded this way of life. And the main purpose of these reformers was to adjust Hinduism to the modern period and to cause positive changes in the Hindu society. The idea expressed by these reformers influenced many individuals up until today, because what they have done, they diverted, they reformed, they challenged the system in order to fit the life of each and every one in the modern times and the times that they were living in. Our saints and sages, our holy men and women, my friends, were born in all parts of India, all parts of the country at that point in time. And it is said that they spoke in many different languages. Some spoke Sanskrit, some spoke in Hindi, some spoke in English, some spoke in Malayalam, some spoke in Telugu. But regardless to whatever language or languages they spoke, my friends, they all place before us the ideal of realizing the eternal relationship between the eternal soul and the eternal God. This happened to be the theme of all these reformers, and from the material world they diverted the mind of their listeners and those who they were reforming. And they, my friends, identify with that supreme soul, the divine consciousness that we call Om time and time again. Their teachings form part of the entire spiritual heritage and our common spiritual knowledge. And therefore, the more we recognize this, is the more our hearts will beat to the same spiritual tune as those great and wonderful souls that lived before us. And some are still alive. And my friends, some will even come in the future. The topic Hindu reformers presents the idea that sometime in the distant past, Hindu thought and practices were on the decline due to maybe oppression, due to maybe suppression, restrictions, and even aggression. And therefore it led to the need to revive and reform the current practices of our Dharma. My dear brothers and sisters, it is against this background that this Yagna will be focused on the reformers and individuals who were beacons of the past involved in the revival of the Hindu thought and the Hindu practices. The outcome of this spiritual exercise could perhaps light up the way forward for the future generation and for all those who would want to tread the path of Hinduism, for all those who would want to follow the path of this ideal way of life. The thought and the practices of these great masters, my friends, will continue to influence not only the present generation, but the future generation. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, the Vedas declare in a very beautiful sutra, and many of you would have heard this sutra before. Like you have Narad Bhakti Sutra. The sutras are very small composition given to us through intuition by the great masters. So the Narad Bhakti Sutra are small, what you call verses that speaks about the transformation that love causes, that love has in our life. Narad Bhakti Sutra, that devotion has. In the same way, my friends, in the Vedas, it is declared as Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. One sutra, one statement, but it is indeed very powerful. And the question is, what does it mean? It means Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. And that simply translates to truth is one. Truth is one. The wise refer to that truth by many names. And when we say the wise, we are talking about the saints and sages, the great men and women that brought this knowledge to us. So ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti. Truth is one. And even though it is referred to by many names, Hindus refer to that one, my friends, as Brahman. And Brahman means the absolute reality. Brahman means, if we were to go into details as to this one sutra, ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti, this truth is one could be the literal translation of it, but it can also mean something very interesting. That which expands. That which expands into everything. That one thing that expands into everything that can be perceived through the senses. That is ekam sat. That is ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti. So that which is part of everything, that is called Brahman. So my friends, this Brahman is eternal, it is boundless, it is of course absolute, and it is also unmanifest. This Brahman, which is the supreme substratum, this principle is called also as the absolute Param Brahm Parameshwar. Param Brahm Parameshwar is the absolute form of that one supreme being. This principle, which is the absolute Parabrahman, my friends, is very interesting and very, very important for us to understand. That Brahman is like the light. The light that is part of our existence, the light that is part of us, the light that is part of you and I, that light that we call the soul, that light that we call Brahman, that light that we call the super consciousness. This principle is called as the absolute Param Brahm Parameshwar, and it transcends the power of human comprehension. This is why, friends, many great saints, many great sages, many great teachers helped us to understand in some way or the other this high reality. On the path of bhakti, it is given as love. On the path of karma, it is given as action. On the path of jnana, it is given as knowledge. But the saints and sages did not only give us this knowledge so that we can practice and realize, but they gave us this knowledge through the path of bhakti as well. As it is said, you meditate upon that supreme being, that form of God that you trust in and believe in. You meditate upon that supreme consciousness and you realize it. It is part of everything in the entire creation, but most importantly, it's you. It's who you are. It's part of you. And this is why, my friends, the saints and sages, the reformers of all times, they help us to realize this Param Brahm Parameshwar. They help us through the knowledge, through different means to identify with ourselves, to have an experience of what? Jyoti Bindu, Jyoti Bindu, Paramatma se hai meri atma, ab chal kar le milan, ab chal kar le milan, ab chal kar le milan. Jyoti Bindu, that dot of light, Paramatma se is Meri Atma, is my soul. And the great masters and reformers, my friends, they were not ordinary beings, but they were extraordinary beings. Having experienced that, they gave us this true devotion, as it is said. Jyoti Bindu, Jyoti Bindu, Paramatma so, my friends, this Jyoti Bindu, the Atma, the Param Brahm Parameshwar, the absolute Paramatma, is realized through the guidance and through the blessing of our great gurus and great masters and, of course, the great reformers. And so, my friends, the scriptures declare that every human being is not just a human being. I'm sure you must have heard this before, that a human being is not just having a human experience. We are all divine beings having a tremendous human experience. We are all divine beings having a tremendous human experience. But we justify our actions, our thoughts, and our words when we say, you know what, I'm just human. But the great masters, they see into our lives. And when they realize that we are justifying, that we are less than we are supposed to be, they help us. They lift us. They guide us, providing that we allow ourselves to be lifted. My friends, this is why one of the principles in Hinduism is before you can have knowledge, you must surrender. Before we get knowledge, we must surrender to a master. We must surrender to a guru. We must surrender to a teacher, that we can be lifted spiritually. And so, we as human beings are really, in reality, divine beings, but we have forgotten this. And the reason we have forgotten this, because we got so caught up in the web of sansar. We got so caught up in the web of this world that we have forgotten who we are. And so to remind us, our guru comes into our lives. The great masters come into our lives to remind us, my friends, and to lift us. These great souls did so many things in their lives that they transformed themselves, and in that process, it transformed everyone who was around with them. In so doing, the Dharma is as if being transformed. I'm going to repeat that. In so doing, the Dharma is as if transformed. But in reality, my dear friends, we all may agree that Hinduism does not need to be transformed. Sanatan Dharma does not need to be transformed. It is an eternal way of life that remains an eternal way of life. But when the people like you and I, my friends, have forgotten ourselves, in that way we forget our Dharma. And when we forget our Dharma, it is as if the great masters again comes to remind us, to lift us, so that the Dharma or the Hindu way of life will continue to strive and to surface. And so, friends, as man continues along the human experience, these potential qualities gradually unfolds, leading to an increasing state of perfection and the expansion of his or her own consciousness. And this consciousness is limitless. Now, a very important question has to be asked. How do these qualities unfold in you and I? Friends, why are some persons on a higher level of existence than others? How come some people are just different in the way they think, the way they carry about themselves in terms of their evolution, their self-unfoldment? How come some people are just up there in terms of the way they think, and some people just remain down here in the way they think and carry about themselves and the way they speak? How come we live in the same world, we live in the same society, we live, my friends, among each other, but yet some are evolved and some are not. Some are awakened and some are not. Some is yet asleep. This is facilitated through the process of karma, the natural law of cause and effect, and its attending circles of reincarnation, that is, gaining experience of all kinds, learning and evolving from birth to death, learning and evolving from birth to death, learning and evolving from birth to death, and the Avagaman continues. The Avagaman Brahman continues, as it says, Punaha api maranam or punaha api jananam. We are born again and we are die again. We are going to die again. And this cycle continues. And you and I have been doing this, my friends, thousands and thousands of years, whether we know it or not, whether we believe it or not. This soul of ours keeps on transmigrating through the process of transmigration. And friends, we are gaining experiences of all kinds. We are learning and evolving from birth to death, and until the ultimate goal is attained. There is this goal that we have to attain. It is the ultimate goal that we want to attain, and we have to attain. We cannot keep on doing this again and again, doing the cycle of birth and death. We have to attain this goal. And friends, this unfoldment then is man's true dharma. This unfoldment, this goal is man's true purpose. When I say man, I mean woman as well. It is our true purpose. This dharma, which is twofold, it is called as Sanatan Dharma, the eternal way of life, and the other is called as Varnashrama Dharma. In Sanskrit, the word Varna, Panditji, is not really caste, In the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan spoke about the Varnashrama Dharma. The word Varnashrama, we categorize it and we think of it as the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishnava and Shudra. But the word Varna really translates as color. Colorful. So, the first one is Sanatan Dharma, the eternal way of life, and the second is called as the Varnashrama Dharma, the individual way of life. See, Sanatan Dharma is the eternal way of life that we all have to live. But the Varnashrama Dharma is categorized as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishnava and Shudra. Friends, it all depends on what we do and the way we carry about ourselves. That will determine our standard of evolution. Whether we are Brahmanas, whether we are Kshatriyas, whether we are Vaishnavas or we are Shudras. So that is Karma Brahmin. Then you have Janma Varna, Karma Varna and Janma Varna. So a person is born into a Brahmin family, a Kshatriya family, a Vaishnava family, or a Shudra family. That is categorized also in that aspect. But very importantly tonight, in this introduction to Hindu reformers, my friends, Bhagavan Krishna himself declares in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, verse number 7. Chapter 4, verse number 7. I want you all to be very attentive. This verse is not a verse that you are hearing for the first time. This verse, every one of you probably, you know it by heart. This verse, you would hear it all the time. Verse number 7 and verse number 8 of chapter 4, where the Lord says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam dharmasya tadatmanam srijanyam paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya chaduskritam dharma sansthapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge yada yada hi dharmasya. Are there anyone in this audience tonight? Are there anyone in this audience tonight who have not heard this verse? Are there anyone in this audience who might be listening or viewing on Sankhya television live tonight who have not read as a Hindu, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam? Every one of us understands, we have read, we would have heard this particular verse. But friends, this is where it starts. This is where transformation starts. The Hindu transformer started by the Master himself when he said, I will come, I will come. Abhyutanam dharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. I will come. Dharma sanstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. I personally will come, age after age, time after time. For what purpose? Paritranaya sadhunam, for the protection of the sadhus, for the protection. Can I ask a question? Who is a sadhu? Anyone tell me who is a sadhu? In a long time it says sadhu and sadhwine. Sadhu is male and sadhwine is female. Swami and swamini. Who is a sadhu? He says paritranaya sadhunam, for the protection of the sadhus. And sadhu is not an old man with long beard and a big tikka and a long mala. Sadhu is not somebody who might be wearing an old dhoti that might not be very clean, and you see him come to your prayers and he sits down in a corner somewhere and he sings and he chants. He is not a sadhu. A sadhu, my friends, paritranaya sadhunam. A sadhu means anyone who is living a decent, a truthful, and a good life. That's anyone, regardless to race, nationality, religion, color, etc. Anyone who lives a decent, respectful, and what you call a divine life, that person is called a sadhu or a sadhwine, as the case might be. So paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam, for the eradication of adharma, for the eradication of evil, for the eradication of injustice. Dharma sanstapanarthaya, for the sake of re-establishing dharma, I will come. Yuge yuge. Yuge yuge means age after age. But my friends, I want you to understand one thing. When Bhagwan Krishna was speaking, he was not speaking about Satyuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga or Kali Yuga. He was speaking, this word yuge yuge can mean that Satyuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga or Kali Yuga. But it also means he will come anytime we want him to come. And that can mean right now. That can mean at this very moment. That can mean, my friends, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing, if you need him, he will come in some form or the other. Not with the basuri, not with the peacock feather tucked in, not with the bow and arrow, not with the mukta, but he will come in some way or the other. But the million-dollar question is, my friends, when the Lord comes, do we have the vision to recognize him? When the Lord comes, do we have we developed ourselves, our drishti, in order to recognize, my friends, how the Lord is working through the people we meet on a daily basis? You see, that intuitive vision is something that has to be developed at a personal level. No guru, no saint, no God can give us this, my friends. It is something that we have to develop through the teachings of our scriptures, through the blessings of our parents, through the blessing of our guru, and through the blessing of the great masters. We have to develop this vision. So the Lord says here, Yada yada hi dharmasya, when dharma falls. Friends, our next question I want to ask you. Who created dharma? Who created dharma? God, Bhagwan himself created dharma. And anything that is created by God can never fall, and it will never fall. So the point we want to make, and we want everyone to understand, friends, if the Lord created dharma, he himself is saying here, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. O Bharata, O Arjuna, when dharma falls, I come from time to time, age to age. How can he create dharma when he says, I create dharma and anything I create will never fall? And now he himself is saying, Yada hi dharmasya. When dharma falls, I come from age to age. What does that mean? Friends, look at this camera stand. The camera is placed on the stand. So the camera stand is supposed to be that which is upholding the camera. The stand is supposed to uphold the what you call the camera. if something goes wrong with the stand, what will happen to the camera? If something goes wrong with the stand, what will happen to the camera? It's going to fall. Now, in the same way, my dear brothers and sisters, when you and I, who are supposed to be the upholders of Dharma, and this word Dharma is not what you call big word in Sanskrit that we can't understand. Dharma, the Dharma of a child, the Dharma of a student, the Dharma of a husband, the Dharma of a wife, the Dharma of an employee, the Dharma of a person means what? It means that when you are a child, we are supposed to honor, respect, and worship the parents. That's the Dharma of a child, in simple language. The Dharma of the husband is to look after the wife. The Dharma of the wife is to look after the husband. The Dharma of the parents is to look after the children. The Dharma of the employee is to work and sincerely for days, honest days' work. The Dharma of a devotee is to love God and have faith in God and believe in that power of God and never lose that faith. Anytime the devotee loses faith, my friends, it is as if the Dharma of that devotee is falling. So the Lord says, very importantly, I come from age to age, from time to time, to remind you and to reestablish this Dharma and to teach you how to live again and how to carry about yourself in a decent and respectful manner. And so, friends, the Supreme Lord, through His love for us, manifests through different avatars. He manifests through different avatars. And these manifestations can either be Kanda avatar, partial transformers, or it can be Purna avatar, complete or full transformers. Transforming man's ability to practice his Dharma. That is why whenever the Lord comes down on the earth, He comes as an ordinary human being, Manushya avatar. He says, I come as a man to teach us how men and women should live in this world. So it's either Kanda, partial, or Purna, full avatar, full manifestation, transforming man's ability to practice his Dharma. And so, friends, these avatars and masters, according to their degree of realization, serve as living upholders of virtue to inspire and guide spiritual aspirants as you and I to transcend their inward and outward negativities. Who are some of these evolved souls? Who are some of these evolved masters? Who are some of these reformers? Friends, who came time after time to assist in the regeneration and upliftment of humanity, to ease the burden of social, mental, and spiritual oppression brought about by political and social environment and of man's own ignorance. Who are these great souls? Can we refer to them as reformers of the practice of Dharma, coming from age to uplift mankind through motivation, education, social programs, seva, medical care, etc.? During this Yagna, friends, we will look at some of the liberated souls. And again, I reiterate, some of these liberated souls who are called as Jivan Mukta Purushas. Jivan Mukta Purushas are reformers who are liberated while they are alive. These reformers, my friends, are liberated while they are alive because they have now evolved into super divine human beings. And how they were instrumental in the upliftment of humanity by using the same dharmic principles enshrined in our scriptures, in our shastras. These great masters, my friends, they are many in numbers. Sanatana Dharma is indeed tremendously blessed with so many great souls and masters. And just to name a few tonight, that we will be going into their biographies and their life and saw what they did to help transform this way of life. Shri Bhagwan Ved Vyas Ji, Shri Valmiki Ji, Sant Tulsidas Ji Maharaj, Bhagwan Shankaracharya Ji, Shri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Swami Vivekananda Ji Maharaj, Param Pujya Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda Ji Saraswati, Shri Swami Tapovan Ji Saraswati, Swami Shivananda Ji Maharaj, Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi, Paramahamsa Yogananda, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, and of course, how can we not mention Shri Kabir Das Ji? These are just a few of the names that we would mention tonight. But there are so many incarnations. Bhagwan Shri Satya Sai Baba, Guru Dattatreya, and so many great masters, my friends, who walk this earth for the upliftment of mankind. And they are indeed Jivan, mukta purushas, liberated while they're alive. And what they want to do, they want to liberate us as well. And this is why their life was transformed. They transformed their life, and also in that process, they help us to also transform our lives. Let us pause for a moment. And let us think about one great master whose name is called Shri Valmiki Ji Maharaj. Maharshi, my friends, Valmiki, we all would recall and would know that he was the author of the Ramayana in Sanskrit, Valmiki Ramayana. He authored this great text consisting of 24,000 verses. He also believed to be the author of Yoga Vasishta, a text that elaborates on the range of philosophical issues, written approximately 500 years ago. It was taught to Lord Ram when he lost all the hopes. That is when Valmiki Ji lost all the hope in his life. Maharshi Valmiki, my friends, was born, and his name was Ratnakar. He was not just born as a saint. He was not born an author. He was called as Ratnakar. And friends, it is said he went into the forest one day and he got lost. A hunter who was passing by saw Ratnakar and took him under his own care. Under the love and care of his foster parents, Ratnakar forgot his original parents, and under his father's guidance, Ratnakar turned out to be an excellent hunter as his foster father. As he approached marriageable age, he was married to a girl in the hunter's family. And friends, as the family grew, Ratnakar had to support the family, mother, father, wife, children. The family was extended also, and he had to support everyone through hunting. It is said one day, a thought came into the mind of this Ratnakar. Ratnakar, my dear brothers and sisters, thought that hunting cannot pay off, and I cannot feed my family from hunting alone. And what he started doing was, he started robbing, he started looting, he started killing, he started what you call murdering. Ratnakar went down the path of adharma. He went down the path of evil. He went down the path, my friends, of that which is absolutely negative. Ratnakar, one day while in the forest, roaming, waiting to prey on someone or something, he heard the voice of someone coming across. And that person, my friends, was chanting, Hari Om Namo Narayana, Om Namo Narayana, Hari Om Namo Narayana, Hari Om Namo Naraji, a still scene, roaming the forest. He never stopped chanting the Lord's name. Friends, can someone who is chanting the Lord's name be killed? Can someone who is chanting the Lord's name be affected in a negative way? Naraji was convinced in his heart that with Narayan, with God on his side, nothing can happen. He had that faith and belief, my dear brothers and sisters. On the other hand, Ratnakar is thinking, I have to feed my wife, I have to feed my parents, I have to feed my siblings, I have to feed my children, and I must kill, I must loot, and I must steal. Hari Om Namo Narayana. Hari Om Namo Narayana. Om Namo Narayana. Om Namo Narayana. Om Namo Narayana. Namo Friends, Ratnakar came into contact with his next prey. That was Naraji. And Naraji, my friends, looked at him and he said, what are you going to do? He said, well, I have to feed my family. I'm going to loot you. I'm going to take whatever you have. Naraji said, why don't you change your life? Why don't you transform yourself from this evil way? I am not going to allow you to rob me. I am going to give you whatever you want. But I first want to ask you a question. And the question is, do you know that when you do good things will follow you, and when you do bad things will follow you? He said, yes, I know. He said, the second question I have for you, will your wife that you want to feed by killing, and your parents who you want to feed by killing, and the other members of the family who you want to feed by killing, will they suffer with you when that time comes? Ratnakar said, I don't know. I don't know what they will do. Naraji said, I am going to wait right here until you return. Go and find out from me, please, if they will suffer for you, with you, when that time comes. And Ratnakar went home, my friends. And he looked at his parents and he asked, please tell me, I am doing all these evil things to make you all happy. When the time comes to suffer, will you suffer with me? The mother said, son, father, it is your duty to look after us. It is your duty to look after us. We never told you to go and do this. He went to his wife and he asked, will you suffer with me? I am doing all this for you. Like when you're in love, you say, whatever I do it for you. Isn't it? Young boy tell a young girl, he said, whatever I do it for you. And whatever I don't do, that also I do for you. Will you suffer with me? She looked at him and she said, yeah, right. Suffer with you? I will never suffer with you. You bring my food and you look after me because I'm looking after the affairs of the home. Ratnakar asked everyone in his family, and everyone said, my friends, that they will not suffer with him. He bent his head, he took his bow and arrow and he walked out of that home. He goes back to Naraji who was still waiting. Naraji said, Narayan, Narayan. आप बताइए भैया, आप बताइए ना, अब क्या है? What now? Please tell me. Will those people suffer with you? Ratnakar bent his head and he said, not one of them have agreed to suffer with me when that time comes, or on my behalf. Naraji looked at him and he says, why don't you transform your life then? Why don't you change? Why do you continue this type of life? And why don't you improve yourself and evolve into the person who you should be? Ratnakar said, how? Please tell me, because I was living all the time for these people that I thought love me, but in reality they don't. Tell me how. And dear my friends, Naraji initiated Ratnakar into a mantra of the name of the Lord. And he gave him the name of Sri Ram. Told him, chant the name Ram, and you will be peaceful and happy and liberate yourself. You will burn up all the pap and all the sins of your life that you have committed, of the murder, etc. And this Ratnakar, he was so anxious to be transformed. He was so anxious to transform himself. He was so anxious, my friends, to evolve spiritually. He was so anxious to make that inner change so that the outer change will become natural. Instead of chanting Rama, 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 Ratnakar started chanting Ulta naam japatu jag jana, Valmiki bhaye Brahma samana, Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Rama. Everyone, Shri Ram Jaya Ram, Shri Ram Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama. Ulta naam japatu jag jana, Valmiki bhaye Brahma samana. Shri Ram Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama. Shri Ram Shri Ram Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama. Shri Ram Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama. Shri Ram Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya. सब लोग गाएं, everyone. Shri Ram Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama. Shri Ram Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama. Shri Ram Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama. Shri Ram Jaya Rama Jaya. He was so anxious, friends, when he realized, something very important, sometimes we give our life to others. Sometimes we go the extra mile for others and we think that they will do the same for us. Sometimes we feel that we will do this and maybe we might get a reward, not that we are looking for reward. But friends, life can be very disappointing at times. The people we go the extra mile for and really turn their back on us. And especially in this case where Ratnakar asked everyone, will you all suffer for me or will you suffer with me? And all of them said no. People who he did what he did for, that is when the anxious feeling came inside of him. Hey, you know what? It's time for me to stop this and do something for me spiritually. It's time for me to stop what I'm doing for everybody and do something for me spiritually. And friends, remember, nobody can take care of you spiritually. Nobody can take care of your spiritual quest, your spiritual thirst, or your spiritual hunger. No one can do that for you. It's something that you ought to do have to do for yourself, and we all have to do it for ourselves. And when having come into contact by God's grace to meet a saint it doesn't happen by guess. Naraji happened to just be passing. And friends, when we come into contact with a saint, we have to be tremendously grateful because that is God's grace in our lives. When you come into contact with a guru, when you come into contact with a saint, when you come into contact, my friends, with someone who helped you change your life for a better, count your blessing. That is when Naraji came and he said, chant the name Ram. And he was so anxious to chant. Instead of saying Rama, 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 he started chanting Mara, Mara, Mara. Ulta jap, Ulta naam japatu jagajana. He started chanting the name wrong side. Not Rama, Rama, Rama. He chanted Mara, Mara, Mara. Rama means God, God, God. And Mara means kill, kill, kill. See, Mara means to beat, to kill. And that is what he was accustomed doing. And because he was accustomed doing that, friends, his mind even went in that path. But I want to ask anybody to experiment tonight. Chant Mara, 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 Mara. Chant it. But then you chant it slow. Listen. Not Rama, 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 Rama. Chant Mara, Mara, Mara. And tell me if you are hearing Rama in Mara. Mara, Maram, 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 Maram. Are you hearing Ram in Mara? Yes or no? Yes or no? Maram, 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 Maram. Mara means to kill, you know. But in chanting Maram, 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 you know what Bhagwan was hearing? Bhagwan is not hearing Maram, Maram. Bhagwan is hearing Ram, Ram. Even though it was ulta jap, even though it was wrong side, the Lord is so compassionate, my friends. The Lord realized, hey, here is somebody who is trying to at least transform himself. And the Lord, who is most compassionate, blessed him. He blessed him. And friends, the same Valmiki ji, in fact, Ratnakar, when he realized what was happening and he wants to do this transformation, you know what he did? He went and he sat down in a long time in what you call on a mountain. And he remained in meditation, chanting this name, Rama, Rama, Ram. Rama, Rama, Ram. Rama, 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 Bole. Rama, 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 Bole. Rama, Bole. Rama, Bole. Rama, Bole. Rama, Bole. Rama, 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 Bole. Chant for a very long time. He sat down in meditation, friends, for a long period of time. And it is said that he was so withdrawn from the world, Ratnakar. He was so withdrawn from the world. The ant came and they started building a nest over the body of Ratnakar. And Ratnakar, my friends, he was then covered in this anthill. If someone were to pass there, they would not even see that somebody has been sitting there for a long time. All they will see is an anthill. Naraji told him, chant this mantra for a period of time, and one day I will come back and I will meet you and I will see that your life has been transformed. And Naraji, friends, gave him the mantra. Ratnakar chanted the mantra, ulta jap, wrong side. But his mind was so sincere and dedicated. He sat down in meditation for a long period of time. The ant came and built the nest over him. When Naraji returned to find Ratnakar, friends, all he could have seen was the anthill covered his body. And when Naraji broke the anthill down, he saw Ratnakar inside in meditation. He brought him out of the meditation after breaking down the nest. And there Naraji gave him the name Valmikam or Valmiki. He gave him the name Valmiki, the one that was covered with the anthill. Friends, this highway thief, this highway robber, this highway criminal or forest criminal who would loot and steal from everyone came into contact with a saint for a few moments. Naraji, friends, Naraji was convinced in his heart, I am going into the forest. I'm not scared. I am not scared. Once I have the name of my Lord with me, friends, once I have the name of the Lord with me, even though the criminals might be waiting for me, I have the name of the Lord with me. Look at the teaching given to us from our scriptures. There was absolutely no fear in the mind of Narad. So he goes into the forest. And when Ratnakar put the weapon by his throat and was ready to kill him for what he had, all Naraji had was the veena. Narayan, Narayan, that's what he's chanting. But coming into contact with the saint, friends, made a highway thief, a highway murderer or a forest murderer into one of the world's greatest teachers. This Ratnakar became Valmiki. And this Valmiki, my friends, have written the Ramayana in Sanskrit. And therefore it is called as Valmiki Ramayana. Friends, this Ramayana has been around for many kalpa, many age, many years, thousands of years. Different ages came and went. The Ramayana remained untouched, meaning that no one can contradict the teachings and the works of Sri Valmiki Ji. And his life was transformed. And in transforming his life, friends, he gave us a tool. He gave us a tool, which is the Ramayana, that we can use to transform ourselves also. And in so doing, Hinduism will also be as if transformed. The reality of the whole team and the reality of the whole situation is, my friends, that the transformation process begins with us. The transformation process begins with you and I as individuals. And so, as Valmiki Ji was transformed, you see, he allowed himself. He wanted this. I want to ask the question tonight. How many of us who are here, how many who are listening on the radio, the different frequencies, how many who are viewing on Sankhya want to be transformed? You know, like if a person is addicted to alcohol or some form of addiction, the first step into recovery is to admit that you have a problem. An alcoholic person will never say, I have an alcoholic problem. If he doesn't want to change, he will never say and admit that they have a problem, he or she. But the person who is willing to change and the person who is willing to be transformed, that person will admit first, hey, you know what? I have a problem. Please help me. And you see, that desire is when the great acharyas and the great masters and the great teachers, my friends, can come into our lives, and in their mere presence, something will happen. In their mere presence, something will happen to us. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. Just being in the presence of a Jivan mukta purusha, my friends, can help in transforming our lives. And so, Valmiki Ji becoming one of the world's greatest teacher, one of the world's greatest masters, from a highway robber, from a criminal, from his lifestyle, he was able to transform. And so, my friends, transform himself and so transform others. And so, tonight, I want us, as we go through this week, to remember one principle and one very important thing, that the Lord can come anytime. The Lord can come in any form. And I strongly believe, and this is my personal belief, this is my personal opinion, and this is my personal feeling. I'm going to tell you this tonight. And that is, my friends, whenever I personally see a saint, I believe in my heart that he is God. Whenever I personally, this is my personal thing I'm talking about, whenever I see a saint or a holy person, I personally believe that that person is God. I'm not telling you to do the same. I'm just telling you my way of looking of a saint, my personal expression, my personal feeling, my personal reference, my personal bhakti, my personal devotion. That is God in that particular form. And therefore, when I see my Lord in the saint, Om Namah Shivaya, Lord, thank you for coming in this particular form. Friends, as I conclude tonight, remember, what we do is very, very important. What others do is not of any importance to us. what we do is important and what others do is not important. Meaning, I have to see about my spiritual upliftment and my spiritual unfoldment. And I have to, my friends, elevate myself spiritually. And therefore, we all have to do it ourselves. Let us use Shri Valmiki ji as not a saint. Let us use him as an ordinary individual whose life has been transformed. And let us also think to ourselves, you know what? I can do it also. I can do it also. I will evolve. I will also elevate myself spiritually. And I will meet Sri Ram just like Valmiki ji had met with Maryada Purushottam Sri Ramchandra ji. I will also elevate myself to that status and be blessed like him. Prem se boliye Jhapati Ramchandra ki, Sat Gurunath Maharaj ki jai.